This next movement is about 3 seconds long. That's it. We don't even charge for it on iTunes.
Rita, who's playing?
This is me and my husband, actually, who's the violin professor at Hartt. Now, this movement actually is this piece. The whole piece was a commission from a British Belizean composer, and you'll see a little more about her later. But this particular movement was my request because she also writes vocal art songs, and this was my favorite song of hers, and it's called "Off the Map."
Off the mat?
Off the map.
Off the map.
This was recorded actually Monday. It's very recording. Here's one more very short movement to our prelude music here. That you. That's that piece. So now we're actually going to go into the actual prelude as we have our last few stragglers come in.
Could we maybe take out this is a video, so.
This is a video. Yeah. So now feel free, you can talk over because this is just the prelude music. So this is a video of, if you were here from the beginning, this is the first movement of the piece you just heard. And again, we recorded this on Monday. And that's our prelude. Welcome.
My name, I'm going to introduce us now. Let's see. Hi, everybody. This is Deborah Robin, and I'm going to start us off today.
Oh, God.
What's wrong?
I'm having trouble.
Welcome, Musical Club members, to the November program of the all-virtual 2020-21 season. We are delighted and honored to welcome Dean Larry Allen Smith of the Hartt School, who, with faculty member Rita Porfiris and students in the chamber music program, will perform and talk to us through how the Hartt School has tackled the unanticipated challenges of this present moment in its 100-year history. 2020, the year we're in. Tips for today. As usual, the audience, that's us, will be muted to optimize the sound quality, unless Dean Smith happens to unmute someone or invite you to. If you have any questions for any of the performers or Dean Smith, please just use chat, type them in there. We were likely to save question and answer to the end, but we'll use some discretion if there's something that warrants some immediate response. If you have any tech problems, also go into chat and someone will try and help you if you can't figure things out for yourself. I just want to mention, coming up on Zoom from the Musical Club, we have 2 programs, one in December and one in January coming up. In December, on December 10th, Mark Bailey, who is the director of the Yale Collection of Historical Sound Recordings, will present a musical exploration type program on the impact and enduring importance of historical sound recordings. There are early recordings that were brought into play into ordinary households at the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. And some of those recordings still exist. He will be our guide on a listening tour of some historical recordings by singers and instrumentalists spanning several musical styles to uncover some historical musical moments, as well as to trace sort of the evolution of performance practice through these recordings. Then, to kick off the new year, we've just booked Oboe Duo Augusto, a pair of gifted young musicians who will create and perform a special program for the Musical Club on January 7th. More programs are in the works for February, March, and April to connect and engage the club through the marvelous wonder of technology. To stay informed, just check the site. Musical Club members will be receiving email bulletins or program information at least a week ahead of each program, and links will be provided a day or 2 in advance. But you can always go to the website. It's continuously updated as programs are added, and we'll have about 1 per month through May of next year. So once again, I would like to introduce our host, Larry Allen Smith. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We are delighted to be here with you. It is such a shock from the last time I was with you, which was in February, when you remember Dee Hansen introduced her book. And there's the book that she spoke about. I always have it right near me. And we talked about the past of the Hartt School. And then we all know what happened come March. And now this had been scheduled so that we could talk about the present. And April 1st, I think, is scheduled that we can talk about the future. In spite of what we're all going through, I think the future is a good thing to keep focused on and keep our hopes up that we can all be in concerts and at the musical club and everywhere we want to be as soon as possible. So this is the 100th anniversary of the Hartt School. It's so fantastic to see people here who are long time friends of the Hartt School. And some alums, I think, are in the audience there too. So we're happy to be here, and I'm delighted to be here with Rita. Rita is a tremendous part of the Hartt School faculty. I'm a pianist, so of course I think the piano is a pretty cool instrument, but I also think the viola may be maybe the best instrument. We can get your feedback on that, Rita, but Rita's our viola professor, and she also has the task of being the chair of chamber music. Now, in any music school, and particularly in any conservatory, the person who is the chair of chamber music has a monumental job, getting all these people in small groups to be at the right place, right time, and all of that. So, and she does it with tremendous zest and it goes so well for us. So today we're really focused on chamber music. But Rita, let me just welcome you and ask you, maybe just, do you mind telling them a little bit about your background and maybe get us to the Juilliard School, and then let me jump in.
Sure. I was born in New York, actually, and started violin, of all things, at age 5 as a Suzuki student, and then moved to Arizona, a very much discussed state these days. And then I went back, went through up to high school in Arizona, and then ended up applying to several music schools and getting into Juilliard. And so I ended up attending Juilliard from 1986 to 1992. I got 2 degrees there.
So here's something Rita and I never discussed, but she just escaped a possible danger, and she doesn't even know it. Because I was at Juilliard from 73 to 81 as a student. And then I was on the faculty from 80 to 86. I left in 86. So she almost had the danger of having me as a theory teacher, but somehow she managed to avoid that. So there you go.
I probably would have learned something, instead of what actually happened.
Well, we can hope that that was going on. But okay, and then you were at Juilliard, you said, from 86 to 92. So that was your bachelor's and your master's.
That's right.
And then what did you do? How did you start your career?
Well, it was funny because in 1991, when you go to Juilliard as an undergrad and then you continue on, you've basically done a lot of the classes already as an undergrad, the way they set it up. So I didn't need to be there much. And of course, it was Juilliard and full of lots of young prodigies going off to solo. So they were used to students not being actually resident in school, even as a master's student, which is unusual for most schools. So around 1991, I started playing in the Deutsche Kammerphilharmonie in the German Chamber Orchestra. So I was going back and forth to Germany every month. I think I was there for a week. And so at the same time as finishing my second year of master's, I was doing that. And I also got to sub with the radio orchestra in Berlin, which is now the DSO, the Deutsche Symphoniker. And then I graduated and started doing what most music students do, which is taking auditions for a job. At that point, I wanted to play in an orchestra. And I ended up getting the fellowship for the New World Symphony in 1992, where ironically, I played in an orchestra, but I also became part of a string quartet that was sponsored by the orchestra, where I got to fly around on private planes and spend a lot of time on the yacht of the guy who owned Carnival Cruise Lines.
Oh, fantastic.
So they kind of adopted us as their resident musicians, and they would fly us around on their private plane on their yacht, and we'd be playing for the Queen of Spain and Prince Albert and Prince Rainier and all those things. It was quite a heady existence for a young 20-something to be doing this at that point in my life. So I was there for about 2 years.
And at the same point, the chamber music was obviously really important and fun, but the orchestra training institute, this is in Miami Beach, if you don't know where that program is, must have been important for getting you ready for the next step.
It was. And so you're allowed to be in that training orchestra, which is still in existence. It's doing great. And you're allowed to be there for 3 years. I was there for 2 years, taking auditions as one did. And I ended up getting a full-time job at the Houston Symphony, where I finally joined in 1995 and stayed there until I came to Hartt in 2009.
Great. And we are so happy that you're at Hartt. We want to, for this program today, you're going to hear lots of music, which is a good thing. And you're going to hear a variety of pieces and in a variety of situations. And we're going to end it with a live broadcast from room 201 in Fuller, if everything cooperates according to our technology here. But Rita, the whole issue right now in these COVID times dealing with chamber music, can you give us just a little perspective on what you're dealing with and how you're handling it?
So as you all have experienced by this point, when you're on these Zoom meetings being isolated, you can't talk at the same time. It's only one person at a time. And that's basically the situation for mostly everybody. And when you're trying to put chamber music together, which is, of course, people playing together, any kind of music together, it doesn't quite work. There there are certain technologies that you can explore. And of course, I was also involved in the early stages of all this testing for these different kinds of technologies that allows people to play together in real time. But it's all very sketchy still, and it really depends on people's internet connection and their equipment and the way the stars align, at that particular time. So in the end, there's really no good way to do chamber music in a pandemic, especially at the beginning when we were really all, isolated at home. But as you'll see throughout this presentation, we actually managed quite well to put people together and get them playing, which in the end, I think made everyone feel better.
So maybe we could hear some of the music here with the Bright Sheng would be great. And maybe if you could set it up for us, what you were doing.
Okay, so if you came in at the beginning, our prelude music was from 5 Postcards by Errollyn Wallen, who is a British Belizean composer. And we had just recorded this particular performance we recorded on Monday for something we're doing that's in London. We were supposed to be live, of course, but we're going to be virtual in December, and that'll be streamed. But that was what you heard when we came in. Right at the start of the pandemic, Anton Miller, who's our violin professor at Hartt, and I had just released a new CD. We're in a duo together called the Miller Porfiris Duo, which is a very particularly creative name. It's both of our last names. He's my husband as well, so we are lucky that we live together and we're able to continue playing together during the pandemic. But we had just released a CD, and normally we had all these concerts set up to promote the CD. On this CD is only violin and viola duo music, and it was all, at the time, it was all living composers who we had interactions with. Unfortunately, right before the release of the CD, Penderecki passed away. But we're very proud of the CD because it's really interesting music. It's not your usual collection, and it's music most of you, I'm sure, have never heard. And so I thought I'd play a track from Bright Sheng's piece. This is from his duo, Angel Fire. And Bright Sheng is a Chinese-American composer. There he is. And this particular duo, was written for another husband-wife team of Annie Kavafian. Is it Annie Kavafian and Steve? Who are they? Anyway, one of the Steves who play viola. There are a lot of Steves who play viola. It was written for them, but it had never been recorded. And I ran into him at a music festival, and he said, "Hey, would you like to record this piece?" This movement you're about to hear, the third movement, quotes a song from the Shandong province of China, a folk song. And in it, I am supposed to sound like an erhu, which is this instrument on the right. And of course, what you may not know is I'm also half Chinese, and I heard this instrument a lot growing up. So it didn't take much imagination to try and sound like this particular instrument. I also, for this section of the piece, I put it together with some scenes from the Shandong province. So you'll get a little travel log.
I love how you put the the video with the music. It's fabulous.
Well, it's funny because, this is what we released right when the pandemic started because we figured people could use some music. And when you have concerts, you have a visual. So it was nice to kind of just put some video with that. So
Yeah.
people felt a little more involved.
Great. You also have a piece by someone who happened to have been one of my composition students, Mani Mirzaee. And Mani was born in Iran, is an Iranian American. And I know how important it was for him to have some of his culture come into his music. Could you tell us a little bit about this piece that we're going to hear?
I love this piece because this came about because the composition department put out a call for the students to write miniatures. And I think the call was for actually 90 seconds, and Mani's ended up being a little bit over. But some of the faculty went into the recording studio and recorded some of them. And this was around the time in 2019 when we were recording our album, Threaded Sky. And we had got rid of everything. We had everything in the can, everything was ready to go. But we loved this duo so much, we decided to add it to the CD. We thought it really fit with the other pieces on the program. And the interesting thing about Mani, now Mani plays what does he play? He plays the setar, which is an Iranian instrument, a Persian instrument. So, and piano, I believe. But what he did for this piece is instead of having bows for the violin and viola, he had us use something called the Mirzaee, which was in the frame before this. I'll just put that here. I'll let it go for a second. It's here. This thing, and if you can see in my tiny little face here as I'm sharing my screen, here it is. And it's a hammer. It's a very light wooden hammer, which is usually used to strike a type of hammered dulcimer called the santur. And this piece, normally when we want sounds of wood hitting strings, we'll use our bow. And that's called colegno for those of you who aren't string players. It means with wood, and it sounds like this. Okay, so that's already pretty interesting, and it sounds like bones or, something a little bit eerier. But he wanted yet an eerier sound, and he had us use these. He actually had to teach how to use them, and it took me longer than it took Anton. But the way you do it, instead of drawing the bow, which I would do with this when I'm doing colegno, like this, instead of doing that, you just kind of let it bounce. So that's... And the motion is this way instead of this way. So that was really cool to learn that kind of new technique. So this piece it was originally called 90 Seconds, but he decided to rename it to Wight of Shadows. And along with the music, I put a picture of the instrument that the Mirzaee would be played with. The funny thing about that is he was such a patient teacher with us, and he had called me about a month after we recorded this piece, and he was at a music festival where he wanted other people. He had, I think, written a piano quintet or maybe a piano quartet where he wanted some of the strings to use this, and there was a lot of resistance. So he asked me if I could talk to them, or, kind of not thinking outside the box classical musician, and talk to them and convince them that this was okay to use. And I
That's
think it
great.
ended well. It did end well for that.
That's great. Rita, you mentioned your duo and Anton, who is also your husband and our professor of violin and all of that. Your duo is so active. You're playing all the time, and then all of a sudden you're not playing live concerts all over the world like you've been doing. So how is it living 24/7 with your duo partner?
You know what? I think I'm lucky. I'm fortunate because we're well suited, musically and just emotionally. Just as far as the marriage goes, we rarely argue, and we are able to spend massive amounts of time together without getting sick of each other. So, and I think that's a problem in any relationship, whether it's a marriage or whether it's a string quartet or whether it's a wind quintet. Any kind of close relationship. I mean, I've had much less successful relationships in musical groups I've been in. Just because you're spending time together. But because of the pandemic, normally we're together a lot anyway. But there are things that we each do separately. We travel to do, and we're not able to do that. But it hasn't been an issue. We've been finding things, interesting and still, yeah, we're not having a problem.
Excellent.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good for the school too, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it was interesting because we have done a lot of CDs. This particular CD is our fourth CD. We didn't have very many videos, so we thought, well, what a great time, as most musicians are doing now, to just kind of let's up our YouTube presence, let's up our presence out there on the internet. And it is a completely different process, and I can't say that it's been fun. It's a lot of work. You have to kind of think about camera angles and whether a cat's in the frame, and keeping your house clean and all that sort of thing, as you all know from meetings. But it's been fun. We've gotten a lot of things out there that we wouldn't have done otherwise. And our last concert was on Friday, March 13th in California, in Death Valley, California. Ironically, it was a silent film concert, because that's another thing we do. We play with silent films. And that was our last concert, and we don't know when our next live concert will be so far.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it's soon. But you brought some music from the duo.
I did. So here's some more music from the duo. This is the Sonata a Duo by Manuel Ponce, who was a Mexican composer at the turn of the 20th century. He's most famous for his piece Estrellita.
Rita, how long would it take you to do recording like that? How many takes? I mean, was it a sort of an all-day project, multi-day project?
You know, the standard industry wisdom is that for every 10 minutes of music you have to record, you need an hour. But with us, we're a little more picky. So the engineers, so for these things, what happens is we have an engineer remote control my computer, actually using Zoom. They're able to take control of my computer and they run the entire session as if they were in a recording booth. So yeah, the engineers know that we take a little bit longer. So for about a 3-minute piece, we'll probably take an hour. We want a lot of takes so we can, have a lot of options. And then I put the video. I'm the one who does the video afterwards.
Great.
So
what about this other piece here?
Yeah, so the next piece is I also do a lot of arranging, partially because for our silent film programs, I like to have music that's appropriate to the era. So I've arranged a lot of music between 1890 and 1920, a lot of art songs. But this piece you're going to recognize, and speaking of, relationships, it's very appropriate. We do a tango here. Anton and I first met in 1986 at Juilliard, so we have known each other a long time, but we weren't married. We've only been married 6 years. But for this piece, Carlos Gardel was an Argentinian composer, tango composer. He died tragically in a plane crash, actually. You will recognize this song from films such as Scent of a Woman and True Lies. And this is my arrangement of it.
Great. So on March 12th, we were all together having classes, and on March 13th, we weren't. And everybody went home, and you, as the chair of chamber music, had to figure out what do we do now. So this is the whole issue of collaborating when no one can travel. How does that happen with chamber music for you?
Yeah, it's a challenge. As I mentioned, there are a few apps that let you supposedly play at the same time, but there's a thing called lag, and your signals is only good as your distance. So even if everybody had fantastic equipment and fantastic connections and the internet traffic was low and so the speeds were quick, even with that, I still couldn't collaborate as easily with someone, say, farther away. So I could collaborate more easily and more in time with someone who lived in Hartford versus someone who lived in England, which is what we've had to do recently. So, without the lag is a really big problem, because it's the kind of thing when you see someone's mouth moving and then the voice comes, So that doesn't work in chamber music. I think I read something like humans can discern a lag of up to 10 milliseconds. And then after that, it becomes, just completely insurmountable. So musicians are a little more sensitive. And certainly you can't do fast music when you're not together in the same room. So what I did was I started looking around for ways that the students could collaborate, and how, musicians could collaborate using technology, but not that technology, something that everybody could do, whether they had a good internet connection or not. And there's an app out there called Acapella. It's unfortunately only available to Apple users, Apple mobile users, actually. And that app is interesting because it's able to record. You can record one section of your piece, one part, and up to 9 people you can add one by one, and you just send it around to people, and each person who plays with it can hear the people who played before. So in a way, it's like playing chamber music, except you're not playing with any live feedback, but you still are able to hear all the parts. So that's one way that people are able to do it right now if they have Apple devices. There's a similar type of thing that if they don't have Apple devices that you can do with just sound, called BandLab. So that was another app we started using. BandLab doesn't have video, so what you would do afterwards with this technology is you would play along with your recording just with another video, and then you would add that. So it was an extra step. But I did end up preferring those two apps because of the fact that you were able to hear the other parts at the same time as playing. So as long as you weren't the first person, you were always playing with somebody. What you've seen a lot of now on the internet, as this started happening, was, all these split screen videos. And for the most part, most of those were done with people just recording their part using a metronome, headphones, click track. And then someone, either they or an engineer, would put those separate parts together, and you never at any point got to hear anyone. And I think, the whole point of chamber music is to collaborate. So we started testing this technology ourselves, which you'll see up in the next couple of files. And then once I was confident it was going to work, we made sure the students knew how to do it. I started giving training to the coaches on how to do it. And we started we started making some music, even though we were all in our separate places. Are there any questions about that? I think we do have a little bit of time to take some questions, actually.
So we're going to hear something made like that?
Yes. I guess no questions as far as that. So here we go. So this is, let's see, should be running. Yeah. So this is something my quartet did by a composer named Clarence Wight. And he was a violinist in, again, early 1900s. And the interesting Connecticut connection is that he actually was born in Oberlin, and his grandfather was an abolitionist in Oberlin. But his grandfather was an amateur violinist, and he also wanted to be a violinist, but his grandfather didn't want him to be a violinist because, that's the devil's work. But he ended up convincing his grandfather to do it, and he ended up going to Oberlin and getting a job at a school in Pittsburgh, but stopped. And I think this was around the time of the Great Depression. He stopped because the school in Pittsburgh stopped paying him. So at that point, he decided he wanted to go back to music school, and he ended up going to a place called the Hartford Conservatory, which doesn't exist anymore, but I think just folded recently. It's not related to the Hartt School. It was probably our direct competitor. So he was in Connecticut for a while. And this again is my arrangement of his piece for violin and piano. And this file was created with a person in San Francisco and a person in Texas. This is the other two members of our quartet. And we used the Acapella app. So I think in that one, the first person to record was the first violinist, Errollyn. And then you can see we do look at the screen because we're trying, as we're playing with this app, we're trying to look at the person just like we would if they were live in front of us to try and catch the visual cues.
And you're all wearing earphones.
We're all wearing, you have to wear earphones. And you have to wear wired earphones. So there were all these things you don't think about, because if you're playing cello, you've got this big thing in front of you, and the length of the wire for the headphones didn't work, so we had to buy headphone extenders, and it's a it's a lot of things we've had to learn in the pandemic. So flushed with our success on that one, we decided let's tackle Beethoven, because actually, for the Hartt 100 original chamber music celebration plan, we were going to do the entire Beethoven cycle, from played by guests, faculty, students, alumni, everybody. So we decided, well, let's tackle some Beethoven. Let's see if we can do that using the a cappella app.
Rita, when you did this, do you ever get to the point where the first person records, second person records, third person records, and the fourth person says, I don't like that tempo, it's too fast, and you had to start all over?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. That's why that 4-minute section, that 4-minute movement took about a month to actually get kind of close to our satisfaction. And of course, Jennifer used to be a member of the Cypress Quartet, so she had recorded the entire cycle, and so she was especially picky. But the good thing about doing it this way is, even if all four of us had recorded already, if one person was unhappy, they could go back in and play their part with the other three. At any point, you could go in and change your own part. So it was, without the live feedback, but it was the closest thing to chamber music.
Right, but slowing down or speeding up must be the trickiest thing.
Right, and if you can see, I divided the piece into sections. So at the ends, like if there was a retard, if the music would slow down, that's when we would end the section, so we wouldn't have to kind of be confused about how to pick it up. And I would just kind of take another section and put it together in the film. Yeah. So our, like I mentioned, our original Hartt 100 chamber plan was to do the Beethoven cycle. Along with that, we had a commission. We were planning on doing a commission call to the composers, the composition department, about the Grosse Fugue, Beethoven's Grosse Fugue, which has been quoted and immortalized by many other composers. And we wanted our composers to do kind of a Grosse Fugue project where they would either quote it or do something that had to do with a fugue, kind of a loose topic. And of course, then the pandemic hit, and Robert Carl, who's one of our composers at Hartt, there he is, our composition faculty, I think within a week of the pandemic starting, he just dashed out this little fugue that he called the Growth Fugue, and we recorded it. So this piece was written and rehearsed and recorded entirely in quarantine. So in that, you can hear how he took the Beethoven's Grosse Fuge theme and just constructed and deconstructed and put it back throughout the whole piece.
Fantastic. So we had the occasion here to see the professionals, your quartet working together. How did the students take to a cappella? And
they were, it was funny because there were a couple of people. Well, it's like I think anything, some people loved it, some people hated it, but mostly they loved it. And we had some students who loved it so much that not only would they do it with their own chamber music groups, but they decided they wanted to harmonize with themselves. So here's Alex Small, who's going to graduate this year. He's majoring in music management, but he's a wonderful violinist. This is his arrangement. So I do want to mention that this and all files are on a new initiative that I started back in the pandemic with our students, which is called Hartt for the Heart. And it was because, in the chamber music department, we do a lot of outreach. I actually changed that when I took over the department back in, I don't know when that was, 2013. That I wanted to have the students go out in the community much more than they were. And so now, or at least until this year, our students were doing up to 50 concerts a year off campus at nursing homes, schools, hospitals. And so, of course, there were a lot of our community partners that now all of a sudden didn't have music. And so what I did was I asked the students to send me files. This was actually one of them. And I put it on a website, on my website, under a section called Hartt for the Heart. Larry, do you have that up? Or
I don't.
Okay. There, our community partners can go to this site. I'll just share it with you really quickly.
You have it? Okay.
Yep, here it is.
Good.
And this is my website. And then you just click on this. And we talk about the project. And the music is actually organized by era. And so that one, if you want to hear any more of that, Alex did a couple more arrangements. It's under Popular Songs of Comfort. And so that's been pretty successful. At least we're able to get some music out there when we couldn't, since we can't actually visit in person.
And it gave them, I think, a real sense of purpose.
It did.
They were creating, so that's fantastic.
Yeah. And we're using it this year as a way for the students to, have their public performance. So, they are making recordings, but they are being seen by people, and they're excited about doing it. So I do have one more before we go to the live students. One more file I want to show you. This is done with the other technology. This is done with BandLab. Now, because one of them didn't have an iPhone or an iPad. This is our harp player, Kayla Frank, and a guitar player, Peter Davis. And they are playing a duo, obviously. This is a picture of them during their coaching. So, the students have coachings like normal, except it's on Zoom. And their coach is there, and they are there, and they're able to discuss the music and play for each other, not at the same time, at least not to be heard at the same time. What I do for my coaching is I have the students mute, and I have one student play, and everybody else play with them, so at least they can hear their part with another part. But this is what their coaching looks like.
Right, and that's Susan Knapp Thomas, and she probably was in Florida doing the coaching. I mean, are people all?
Oh my gosh, I had no idea. That's horrifying.
I'm not sure, but I think so.
This piece, I'm actually just going to skip to the middle of it. It's kind of long. But what I did, since it was only an audio file, I asked to put some video together, and they didn't get it to me in time. So I actually put some in. The music, of course, is about mermaids and other water nymphs. So I figured this was inappropriate.
Rita, that's terrific. You have such a talent with the video and all the things that you're doing with it. It's pretty amazing.
It's been fun. Fun and frustrating, but fun mostly.
Good. So look who's joined us. I think, can you see Rita live from room 201?
Yeah, right.
In the
Yay.
Fuller Music Center. And just so everybody knows, we have very strict rules. And so social distancing of distance and also wearing the mask is important. String players have it a lot easier than the winds and brass, but we can talk about that later if you have questions. But Rita, should we have them tuned so we can hear the sound?
Yeah. Could we hear a little bit of sound, guys? Just tune, yeah. And then Clifford, is Clifford there? Can we turn the gain down just a little bit? Just a little bit.
Yeah, this is being, we have one of our student engineers, Clifford Robbins Senwald, is helping us there.
Yeah, all right, so I just turned the gain down a little bit. Do you guys think you can just tune again real quick, just to see how that...
I think that's better.
All right, cool.
Thanks. Can we start? Can you all introduce yourselves?
Hi, my name is Julie, and I'm a first-year master's student studying violin performance with Katie Lansdale and Suzuki Pedagogy. And my name is Helena Schumann. I am also a first-year master's student studying Suzuki Pedagogy.
Hi, I'm Zach Sears. I'm a first-year art diploma student studying cello performance.
Hi, I'm Becca Beaker. I'm a first-year DMA student studying the viola. And we're going to play a string quartet by Mendelssohn, Opus 13, number 2, the first.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Wonderful. Really, really wonderful.
Thank you, guys. So while they leave and the next group comes in, are there any questions? A lot of our groups, most of our groups are live. That is, the students are in person. Some of our coaches are remote, so the students meet and in front of a computer screen and have their coachings with the coach who is in another location. Some of our coaches are live, so we have a combination. Some of our groups are remote. We have some groups China actually, and so in that case, we're dealing with a time change and and being remote. So that's been quite a challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And in fact, we become a 24/7 school because of that. And we literally have people all over the world sort of all the time taking their lessons, etc. China right now is 13 hours ahead of us.
Yeah. It's funny because for one of my studio class, my viola studio class, one of my students in China, she was so relieved when the time changed because it meant that instead of getting up to be at class at 5 a.m., she could be at class at 6 a.m. So poor thing.
Yeah, it's amazing. So we build this as Hartt the present. We are definitely showing you the present, right? That was the idea, that this would be with our college students. This is what's going on. So you're seeing it. What about this next group, Rita?
So maybe we can unmute them.
Yep.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Bobby, or if you all want to introduce yourself, I don't know who was picked as the spokesperson, and talk a little bit about your piece. Very brief.
We're waiting for Sayla to come back. We have a standing function. So, but I'll start. I'm Bobby. I'm a doctorate performance in viola. This is Max, master's in cello performance. This is Daniela. She's a master's in Suzuki pedagogy in violin, and our final violinist Sayla is also a Suzuki pedagogy major. The piece that we're playing is by Ernst Bachnani, a romantic composer, and the movement that we'll be playing is entitled Presto Acciaccato. The word acciaccato can be translated as broken, bruised, or torn apart. And this movement kind of really shows a separation between our group very much in the beginning, and then finally at the very end we kind of come back together as a whole unit. We hope you enjoy it.
Tremendous. Thank you so
Bravo.
much. Wonderful. Wonderful to hear what you're doing with that piece. Very exciting.
Thank you, guys. While you leave and the next group comes in. Thank you. Are there any questions? You know, one thing I forgot to mention as I talked about, we had originally planned for the Hartt 100 to do this big Beethoven celebration, but since we can't do that because it doesn't really, I mean, we all love Beethoven quartets, but to just hear more recordings of them or to see more recorded videos is not as impactful as if they were live. So what we've decided to do is we're having actually a festival of all the departments of Hartt, hopefully, at the end of the year, and it will be called The Uncertainty of Fate. And it's basically going to be interweaving particularly meaningful movements of Beethoven. You know, a lot of wars happened during his time, and a lot of things like political unrest, things that are very current to us. And I've asked composers to write new pieces. We're going to have existing pieces, all kind of having to do with what did 2020 mean to you? And it's going to be about a 2 or 3 day event with guest speakers, social justice issues, live streamed music and recorded music, dance and theater. So we hope that you will be able to join us.
No, great. So, Rita, with wind players, things are a little bit different, and I don't know if you'll be able to see their mask, but maybe you want to say something about that.
Yeah. So when all this first happened, you know, all this information was coming out, and this is all a new world for all of us, and all sorts of studies were being made, and our own Glenn Adsit at the Hartt School, I think, was actually helping with a lot of that, a lot of the science of that. And they did aerosol studies where they would discover depending on the wind instrument, which wind instrument could produce the most aerosols. And so obviously they produce way more aerosols than string players who are just simply breathing normally. So you guys, can one of you walk up close to the camera so you can show everybody? Don't take off your mask, but just walk up close so they can see your mask. I don't care who it is.
The camera's right there, by the way. So.
Hi.
Thank you. Hi.
So
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 you
there
can keep the mask on and still play.
And then you also have a mitigation device, as we say, so on the end of your bell there, so that prevents the spread of further aerosols. Do the oboes or clarinets? What do we have over there? Are you guys wearing things? Okay, there we go. Yeah, so they've got things at the ends of their bells to prevent, and the bassoon too, so to prevent aerosols from spreading.
Yep.
And the sound hasn't, from what I've read, the sound isn't affected that much. Is that right?
not really.
Okay. Everybody, yeah, of course, Yes. Okay, so we have a little bit of time. I'm not sure if Felix, I'm not sure if I talked to you about this, but we have about if you have about 5 minutes of a movement to play, that would be great.
And if they introduce themselves, that would
And
be.
introduce yourselves and talk about your piece.
So we are the Lickle Quartet. We are playing John Lickle's piece Casazone. We're playing the first movement of it, and this whole piece has been for many years attributed to Wolfgang Mozart. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bravo, guys. There was a question, actually. There was a question from the group. Are you finding that you have to learn to breathe differently with the masks on or with the mitigation devices on?
Yeah, sometimes when you breathe, you inhale the mask as well. We found it hard. Like some of the masks, like I know the zipper one doesn't happen that often, but with like the one that I have, like I'm catching myself inhaling it a lot. So like I do have to practice with it on a lot, so I can play with it when I'm in a rehearsal normally. So there are some accommodations that have happened to have been made.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for taking time. I know you had to organize your day. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Rita, maybe we should answer any questions that
Yeah.
that exist. The amount of preparations, the things that have gone on in order to make it possible for us to be live is quite extraordinary. It took many months. There are tents around Hartt. You'd find singers, many of the singers having their lessons outside in tents, because singing is actually the most difficult thing, along with probably dance and certain theater aspects. So all of it's been studied and controlled, and it's enabled us to come back and be in person. A lot of schools haven't been, and knock on wood, we have to make it until just before Thanksgiving. The last 2 weeks are going to be remote, but we've had very few cases, and they've been extremely controlled. The things that are happening in the university are pretty amazing to keep people safe. So, but it's really hard. I think maybe Hartt might have the worst time of it in terms of COVID and having classes and things happen. Rita, I wanted to mention two things and ask you many of our concerts, our sort of school concerts, are live streamed, and the page, if everybody wants it, is hartford.edu/hartstream. Hartford.edu/Hartt, H-A-R-T-T stream. And you have a concert coming up with some of your chamber music folks, right?
We will have a streamed chamber music concert. I know I've seen a lot of you at our chamber music concerts over the years. So it's next Wednesday, actually, at 6 p.m. And that'll be streamed from Lincoln. And I apologize if there aren't links there, as many as there should be. You know, I think part of it is we're doing a lot of this on the fly. So when we can stream officially, we do. And maybe the streams might be put up at the last minute. But I think going to the Hartt, the link I put up, oh, there we go. Hartt recording stuff. Thanks there, Cliff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
think going to that link is probably the most up to date.
Yeah. Yeah.
The one next week is supposed to be streamed. And so we'll probably have 6 to 10 groups performing at that one. And that will take place, if you were wondering, in Millard.
But you won't be able to go to it except through live streaming.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you know, just to give you a sense, that contact tracing has been one of the reasons we've been so successful as a university. And so if there is something, if there is a performance that has a few members of the audience, they would be internal people, you know, fellow students, some faculty. That is all contact traced. We know who goes to the performance, who's in the room, and should anything happen, we can track it down. So it's very, very controlled, and the students have been incredible.
They have been, and they've been so good about, you know, following the rules and about distancing, and so enthusiastic about, you know, being able to make music together in whatever form, that it's great to see it. And I was telling Larry earlier, I think some of the students are actually maybe with fewer distractions, right? They can't congregate in groups. So actually there's been a lot more practicing going on. So that's good for us.
Yeah, there you go. So some of these questions, do you want to help us, Deborah? Are there some there that we can answer for folks?
Mostly it's just incredible thanks, appreciation, and praise for your production as well as your students and your own playing. I don't see any other additional questions. Do you, Rita?
Someone asked about the singers, so I mentioned where they are. And you know, another thing maybe just to mention, in all the rooms at Hartt in Fuller, there are different rules for the dance and theater. They have their own things that are going on. But we have fans with filters in every room drawing the aerosols out. This whole enemy of the arts seems to be, you know, the aerosol issue. And so all kinds of things are happening where people are like singing toward the fan, and the fan's drawing the air out of the building.
And we even had some rooms, I'm not sure if they're using them, but we had some rooms set up that were on a very special server, internet server, that were directly connected, so that if a singing teacher and a student and a pianist needed to be in the same room at the same time, of course they can't be. So the students and the pianist would be in one room, and then that would be linked via the internet at school to this other room where the teacher would be in. And there, the connection, I think, is able to be really pretty fast.
And that ties to what you were describing before about lag. The fact that they're in the same place, on the same network, makes that
same network. Yeah, that makes it work.
But another thing you might all want to know is that every room is scheduled, and the practice rooms even. So an hour in and a half hour air purge, so the air can change, and then the next person can come in.
I have Marshall, would you like to quickly voice your question?
Yeah, this is for Larry. Larry, good to see you, first of all.
Yeah, nice to see you.
And secondly, are any of your compositions going to be played on that streaming thing this year? Do you know?
I don't think
stream.
No, they have me on 20-hour a day schedule, keeping everybody safe and working on our stuff at the school. So no, I'm pretty tied. Excuse me, I'm pretty tied up at the moment.
Another question for
Okay.
you. What is the
Thank you.
schedule for the rest of the year? Are you away at Thanksgiving back in January? Same protocol for the remainder?
We are out remote for the last 2 weeks, then we have exams. And then we've shifted the start of the semester from the 20th of January to February 1st and gotten rid of spring break. That's kind of something we're seeing around the country. So it's going to be very concentrated. People shouldn't be going away from campus. So we got rid of the spring break and we'll end at our normal time.
And then the added bonus for that was it put us hopefully closer to vaccines being available away from flu season in the warmer months when students can begin practicing and rehearsing outside again under the tents.
Okay. Let's see. How many students from overseas are there who can't get to the United States?
About a sixth of our students are remote, and I'd say probably about, and that would be a little over 100. We have 650 at Hartt, including music, dance, and theater. So about 100 have chosen to be remote. They could make that choice. But then, of course, the ones from other countries, many of them got stranded either in Connecticut or wherever they are. So yeah, it's made a lot of adjustments necessary.
How have the faculty been adjusting? You talked about the students. Has it been more or less difficult? Seems like it might be. They're older.
It's pretty difficult, I'm going to say. And Rita has actually been someone who has helped to train a lot of the faculty to be able to teach remotely. But imagine this situation. So everything we teach, which is about 1,300 different things at Hartt, actually classes. Imagine that you are in your theory class, the people are there, and we use a thing called, Rita, help me. I've only been dealing with it all the time, where the class gets divided up.
Hybrid.
Hybrid, sorry, thank you, yeah. Hybrid, I think I put it out of my mind because it's been so painful dealing with it. But say half of the class comes on Monday, the other half comes on Wednesday, but some of the classes in China or in South Korea. And so the teacher is teaching not only to the people in front of them, but to the people who are remote. And Rita, you've helped us prepare for that.
Yes, and most of the classrooms are now equipped with a webcam, so all the teacher, even if they're not smart, a smart classroom, of course, has a podium that you can just directly plug your computer into, and then there's a screen and projector and all that. Even the rooms that don't have those now have webcams, so if you bring your own computer, you're able to do that. And I'm in a smart room for most of my classes, except my lessons, obviously, and for one other class where I have to have some remote students, I brought my own projector and I project them on the wall. So they're about life size, and the students who are in the room can see the students on the screen quite well, and everybody can hear each other. So it's working okay. Someone said it's amazing we have this technology, and it certainly is. I think obviously in 1918, during the Spanish flu, we couldn't have done that, anything like that. So there was a lot more isolation there in some way. Of course, the flip side is that we all get a little bit of Zoom fatigue.
Yeah. Zoom 24 hours a day. And we also have a number of people, actually the exact number right now is 55 members of the faculty and staff who have what we call accommodations. And so they are remote, teaching everybody either who would be at Hartt or also remote. So we have a lot of coming and going from different places. One of our classes, the piano classes, the students are actually in the classroom and the teacher's not. But they need to be there because they need the different keyboards in order to have the piano class. So everybody's making it work. It's just incredible.
Any other questions from our audience? I think Larry and Rita, we've kept you over and we so appreciate it. This has just been, it's just been so wonderful. And on this day in particular, we are so grateful for everything you've always done, but particularly what you're doing now for the world of music, for your students, for Hartford, and for all of us, the Musical Club.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to April. And when we talk about the future, and the future is going to be the 2,800 people who are part of the Hartt Community School. And I especially want to thank Rita, because she put obviously a lot of work into organizing this for all of us. And so thank you, Rita.
A pleasure, and thank you all for your support. And it really makes a difference. Even though we're just seeing you on a screen, it still does make a difference for us to be able to play and share our music with you like this. So please keep showing up to these.
Thank you so much.
May we say something?
One real quick comment, sure.
I'm in Boynton Beach, Florida, and this has been absolutely stunning, amazing, and most wonderful thing that you could have done to help everybody feel good.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you.
No question. Be well, everyone.
Yes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.